The transport ship landed on station with a soft hum. The doors opened, and 32 humans walked out into the massive docking bay. They were the first humans ever allowed to join the Galactic Coalition Academy. Every other species in the galaxy had been watching this moment for months. Corporal Park stepped onto the metal floor and looked around. The station was huge. The ceiling was so high that she could barely see it. Thousands of aliens walked in every direction. Some were tall, some were short. Some had 4 arms, some had tails. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. Was small. She stood at 165 centimeters and weighed only 58 kilograms. Back on Earth, she had been a hand-to-hand combat instructor for the Republic of Korea Marine Corps. She had trained soldiers twice her size. She had fought in competitions across Asia. She had never lost a match in 5 years. But here, she was just another weak human. Private walked beside her. He was young, only 23 years old, but he was smart. He had memorized the biology of every known alien species before leaving Earth. He believed that knowledge was the best weapon. "They are all looking at us," he whispered too. "Let them look," she replied. "We have nothing to hide." Lieutenant led the human group. She was tall for a Korean woman and carried herself like a soldier. She had served 15 years in the military and had been chosen to lead humanity's first squad at the academy. The pressure on her shoulders was enormous, but her face showed nothing. Behind them walked Sergeant Han. He was broad and muscular, the biggest human in the group. On Earth, he would have been considered strong. Here, among aliens who stood 3 meters tall, he looked like a child. An officer met them at the entrance to the training facility. There were reptilian creatures with green scales that covered their entire bodies. They had yellow eyes, sharp teeth, and claws that could cut through steel. This officer stood nearly 3 meters tall and looked down at the humans with clear disgust. "Follow me," the officer said through a translator device. "Senior Instructor is waiting." The humans followed in silence. They walked through long corridors filled with training equipment designed for bodies much larger than theirs. Everything was too big. The doors, the chairs, the weapons on the walls. This place was not built for humans. They entered the main training hall. It was massive, bigger than any gymnasium had ever seen. Hundreds of recruits from different species were already there. All of them turned to watch the humans enter. Senior Instructor stood at the center of the hall. He was old with scars covering his scales and one eye that had turned white from an old wound. He had served in the coalition military for 40 cycles. He had killed enemies from dozens of worlds. He had never been defeated in combat. He looked at the humans and laughed. "So these are the famous Earthlings," he announced. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "The Coalition Council forced us to accept them. They say humans are warriors." He laughed again. "I see only soft, weak creatures. No claws, no fangs, no armor. They have nothing." The alien recruits laughed with him. They made hissing sounds. The massive 4-armed primates who stood even taller than the simply shook their heads. Walked toward the human group. Each step made the floor shake slightly. He stopped directly in front of. He had chosen her because she was the smallest. He wanted to make a point. "This one is your combat specialist." He looked back at his assistants with amusement. "She weighs less than my morning meal. I could break her with one hand." Did not react. She kept her eyes forward and her face calm. Inside, her heart was beating fast, but she would never show it. "Do you speak human?" Leaned down until his face was close to hers. His breath smelled like raw meat. "Or are you too afraid?" "I speak when I have something worth saying," Instructor replied. Her voice was steady. The hall went quiet. No recruit had ever spoken to without trembling. The other humans held their breath. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he straightened up and addressed the entire hall. "Humans believe they belong here because they conquered their own planet. They killed their predators. They built weapons to make up for their weak bodies." He spread his arms wide. But this is not Earth. Here, you will face real warriors, species that were born to fight, species that do not need weapons because their bodies are weapons. He pointed at without looking at her. You will train with everyone else. You will do the same exercises. You will face the same challenges. And when you fail, when you break, when you beg to go home, I will be there to remind you that humans do not belong among the stars. The human squad was assigned to Barracks 7, the smallest and oldest section of the living quarters. The beds were too large. The showers were designed for creatures with scales. The food dispenser did not recognize human nutritional needs. That night the squad gathered in the common area, stood before them. We knew this would not be easy, she said. We knew they would not welcome us, but we are here for a reason. Earth is watching. Every human who dreams of traveling to the stars is watching. We cannot fail. Sat quietly in the corner, thinking about words. He believed humans were weak because they had no natural weapons. He did not understand that humans had survived precisely because they had no natural weapons. They had learned to think, to adapt, to create techniques that turned their bodies into something more dangerous than any claw. She would show him, she would show all of them. But not yet. First she would watch, she would learn, she would wait for the perfect moment. That was the human way. 3 weeks passed at the academy. Every day was harder than the last. Instructor made sure of that. The human squad woke up before everyone else. They ran twice as far as the other recruits. They carried equipment designed for species 3 times their size. When other squads rested, the humans trained. When other squads ate, the humans were still running. Watched them with growing frustration. He had expected them to break within the first week. He had expected tears and complaints and requests to go home. Instead, the humans just kept going. They sweated. They struggled. They fell down, but they always got back up. They are like machines, one recruit whispered to another. They do not stop. Heard the whisper and smiled to herself. The aliens did not understand. Humans were not machines. They were something far more dangerous. They were persistent predators. On Earth, their ancestors had chased prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. The human body was built to endure what other species could not imagine. But refused to see this. To him, the humans were simply too stupid to know when to give up. During combat theory class, he found new ways to humiliate them. He called on human recruits to answer questions about fighting techniques that required claws or extra limbs. When they could not demonstrate the moves perfectly, he laughed at them. You see, he would say to the class, humans cannot even perform basic techniques. How can they call themselves warriors? One afternoon, the class was studying defensive positions, was explaining how to block attacks using natural armor, something they had plenty of and humans had none. Corporal Park, he called out suddenly, stand up. Rose from her seat, every eye in the room turned to her. Show the class how a human would defend against a claw strike. She walked to the front of the room, stood beside her, towering over her small frame. He raised one hand, claws extended. They gleamed under the artificial lights. I will move slowly, he said with a cruel smile. I would not want to accidentally kill you. He swung his hand toward her in a slow arc, moved smoothly to the side, redirecting his arm with a gentle push. His claws passed harmlessly through empty air. The class murmured in surprise. His eyes narrowed. Again, he said. This time he moved faster. Dodged again. She did not try to block. She did not try to match his strength. She simply was not there when his claws arrived. You are running away, growled. That is not defense, that is cowardice. I am still standing, Instructor. Is that not the goal of defense? The class went silent. Speaking back to was dangerous. Everyone knew that. The instructor stepped closer too. He was so close that she could feel the heat from his body. His yellow eyes burned with anger. You think you are clever, human. You think your little tricks make you special. He held up his hand again, claws fully extended. But what can you do against this? Your skin is soft. Your bones are fragile. One strike from me would open you from throat to stomach. Humans have survived worse, Instructor. Have they? Laughed bitterly. Your species has been in space for less than a century. Mine has ruled star systems for 10,000 years. We were building empires while your ancestors were still living in caves. And yet here we are, said quietly, standing in the same room, training at the same academy. Perhaps we learned faster than you expected. The room was completely silent now. Every recruit held their breath. Even assistants looked shocked. His tail lashed behind him. It was a sign of extreme anger among his species. For a moment, thought he might strike her right there in the classroom. Instead, he leaned down until his face was centimeters from hers. You want to prove yourself, human? Fine, tomorrow, the combat ring, full contact, no rules, no protection. His voice dropped to a whisper that only she could hear. I will break every bone in your body, and then the galaxy will see what humans truly are, weak, fragile, nothing. I accept, said without hesitation. Straightened up and addressed the class. You heard her. Tomorrow you will all witness what happens when a human faces a real warrior. Class dismissed. The recruits filed out quickly. Nobody wanted to be near when he was this angry. Caught up within the corridor, his face was pale with worry. What did you do? He asked. He is going to kill you. Combat veterans have never lost a fight, never, in 10,000 years. There is a first time for everything. This is not a joke. He is 3 times your size. He has claws that can cut through metal. He has killed hundreds of enemies in real combat. Stopped walking and turned to face him. Her eyes were calm, but there was something hard beneath the surface, something that had never seen before. Do you know why humans became the dominant species on Earth? She asked. Because we made tools, weapons. No, we became dominant because we refused to accept our limitations. Every predator on our planet was faster than us, stronger than us, had better weapons than us, but we did not give up. We learned. We adapted. We found ways to win that no other species could imagine. She started walking again. Thinks he knows what humans are. Tomorrow I will show him how wrong he is. That night the human barracks was quiet. Everyone was thinking about what would happen in the morning, had tried to talk out of the fight, but it was too late. The challenge had been made in front of the entire class. There was no way to back out without shamming all of humanity. Sat alone on her bed, stretching her muscles and clearing her mind. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her the old ways of Korean martial arts. She thought about her instructors in the Marines, who had shown her how to use every part of her body as a weapon. She thought about all the opponents she had faced who were bigger and stronger than her. She had beaten them all. Tomorrow would be no different. The night was long. None of the humans could sleep. They gathered in the common area of their barracks, sitting on the oversized chairs and talking in low voices. Outside, the station hummed with artificial life support systems. Inside, the air was heavy with worry. Sergeant Hand paced back and forth across the room. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. This is madness, he said for the 10th time. You saw how fast he moved in class today, and that was slow for him. In real combat can strike faster than human eyes can track. I know, said calmly. She was sitting on the floor, stretching her legs in a wide split. His claws can cut through combat armor. Our trainers showed us the recordings. I watched a tear through a blast door with his bare hands. I know. He weighs 300 kilograms. You weigh 58. If he gets one hand on you, the fight is over. Then I will not let him get a hand on me. Stopped packing and stared at her. How can you be so calm? Are you not afraid? Looked up at him. Of course I am afraid. Only a fool would not be afraid, but fear is just a feeling. It does not control me, I control it. Lieutenant sat in the corner studying her tablet. She had been quiet for most of the night, but now she spoke. I have been reading everything I can find about combat styles. They have three main attack patterns: the overhead strike, the sweeping claw, and the tail whip. All of them rely on overwhelming force. They expect their opponents to either block or run. What happens if you do neither? Asked. That is the problem. There are no records of anyone doing neither. Every species that has faced the in combat has tried to match their strength. They all lost. Stood up from her stretch and began moving through a series of forms. Her movements were slow and precise, each one flowing into the next like water. These were the techniques her grandmother had taught her decades ago, passed down through generations of Korean martial artists. The think strength is everything, she said as she moved. They have never faced an opponent who does not try to be strong. They do not know how to fight someone who uses their own strength against them. Pulled up holographic images on his tablet. They showed the anatomy in great detail, organs and muscles and bones all visible. I have been studying their weak points, he said. Their scales provide excellent protection against most attacks, but there are gaps here at the joints. He pointed to the elbows and knees. Here at the throat. He moved his finger to the neck area. And here under the jaw, there is a secondary nerve cluster that controls their motor functions. If you can hit it with enough force, it will cause temporary paralysis. How much force? Asked. That is the problem. The nerve cluster is protected by thick muscle. A normal human punch would not reach it. What about an abnormal human punch? Looked confused. What do you mean? Stopped her forms and faced the group. Humans have studied combat for thousands of years. We have developed techniques that can generate incredible force from small movements. A proper strike does not come from the arm alone. It comes from the ground, through the legs, through the hips, through the core, and finally through the fist. All of that energy focused on a single point. She demonstrated with a slow motion punch. Her entire body rotated, each part adding power to the movement. I have broken boards, I have broken bricks, I have broken the bones of men twice my size. Her voice was quiet but certain. I can reach that nerve cluster. The room was silent for a moment, then spoke again. You will only get one chance. If you miss, or if the strike is not strong enough, he will know what you are trying to do. He will not give you a second opportunity. I will not miss. Sat down heavily in one of the chairs. What about the rest of us? If you lose tomorrow, what happens to humanity's place in the coalition? It was a question they had all been thinking about, but nobody had wanted to ask. The stakes of this fight went far beyond, and if she lost badly, it would confirm every negative thing the aliens believed about humans. It could set back humanity's integration into galactic society by decades. Walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of kilometers away, Earth was spinning through space. Her family was there, her friends, everyone she had ever known. I am not fighting for myself, she said softly. I am fighting for every human who will come after me, every child who dreams of traveling to the stars, every soldier who wants to serve alongside alien allies. If I lose, they will say humans are too weak to be warriors. But if I win... She turned back to face her. If I win, everything changes. They will have to respect us. They will have to see us as equals, not because we asked for it, not because we demanded it, but because we earned it. Stood up and walked too. She put her hand on the smaller woman's shoulder. Then do not lose. Nodded, I will not. The hours passed slowly. One by one, the other squad members went to their beds to try to rest. Only remained awake, moving through her forms again and again, preparing her body and mind for what was coming. As the artificial dawn began to brighten the station's lights, she finally sat down in the center of the room. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. In her mind, she could see the fight playing out. She could see charging at her. She could see his claws reaching for her throat. She could see herself moving, dodging, waiting for the perfect moment. And then she could see her fist connecting with his jaw. She could see the shock in his yellow eyes. She could see him falling. She opened her eyes. The morning had come. It was time to make history. The combat arena was packed with spectators. Word had spread through the entire station overnight. A human had challenged Instructor. It was the most exciting thing to happen at the Academy in years. Aliens of every species filled the viewing galleries, sat in the upper sections, their scales gleaming under the bright lights, crowded together near the front, their four arms folded across their massive chests. Smaller species found places wherever they could, standing on seats and climbing on railings to get a better view. Everyone wanted to see the human get destroyed. In a small room beneath the arena prepared herself. She wore simple training clothes, loose enough to allow full movement. Her hands were wrapped in thin cloth, more out of habit than protection. She stretched her muscles one final time, feeling the familiar burn. Stood by the door, his face tight with worry. The whole station is out there. I have never seen so many aliens in one place. Good, said, more witnesses. Has been warming up for an hour. The others say he is angrier than they have ever seen him. He took your challenge as a personal insult. It was meant to be personal. The door opened and stepped in. Behind her, they could hear the roar of the crowd. It is time, she said. Stood up and rolled her shoulders. Her body felt light, ready. The fear was still there, somewhere in the back of her mind, but it was small now. Distant. She had done this before. Not against aliens, not with the fate of humanity watching, but the fight itself was the same. It was always the same. One person against another, skill against strength, will against will. She walked through the door and into the arena. The noise was overwhelming. Thousands of aliens shouting, hissing, roaring. Most of them were calling for her blood. She could hear the chanting's name. She could see the making gestures that probably meant death. In one small section of the gallery, the human squad stood together. They were the only ones cheering for her. 32 voices against thousands. It was enough. Waited at the center of the ring. He looked even bigger than usual, his muscles tensed and his scales raised in a display of aggression. His claws were fully extended, each one as long as a human finger and sharp as a razor. His yellow eyes tracked as she approached. I thought you might run, he said. His voice was calm now, controlled. The anger was still there, but he had buried it deep. It would have been the smart choice. Humans do not run from challenges, Instructor. Then humans are fools. The referee, a massive with gray fur and ancient eyes, stepped between them. He explained the rules in a booming voice that echoed through the arena. Full contact. No weapons. No outside interference. The fight would continue until one combatant surrendered or was unable to continue. Smiled at that last part. He had no intention of accepting surrender. The referee stepped back. The crowd fell silent. Every eye in the arena was fixed on the two fighters. Begin. Attacked instantly. His right arm swept toward in a claw strike that could have cut through steel. It was fast, faster than anything she had seen in training. A normal human would have been dead before they could react. Was not a normal human. She dropped low, letting the claws pass over her head by centimeters. She felt the wind of his strike ruffle her hair. Then she was moving, rolling to the side, coming up in a ready stance 3 meters away. The crowd gasped. They had expected the fight to end in seconds. Instead, the human was still standing. Turned, surprise flickering across his face. Then he attacked again. This time he used both arms, striking from different angles. His tail swept low, trying to knock her legs out from under her. Moved like water. She flowed around his attacks, never staying in one place long enough for him to connect. She did not try to block. She did not try to counter. She simply was not there when his claws arrived. Stand still, roared. He was getting frustrated now, his controlled anger starting to break through. "Make me," replied. He charged at her with his full weight, arms spread wide to catch her no matter which way she dodged. It was a dangerous move, one that sacrificed technique for raw aggression. Against most opponents, it would have worked. Did not dodge to the side. Instead, she moved forward, directly toward him. It was such an unexpected move that hesitated for just a fraction of a second. That hesitation cost him everything. Slipped between his outstretched arms. She was inside his guard now, too close for his claws to reach her. She planted her back foot firmly on the ground. She felt the energy building in her legs, her hips, her core. This was the moment, one chance, one strike. She drove her fist upward with every gram of force her body could generate. Her rotation was perfect. Her aim was perfect. Her fist connected with the soft spot beneath his jaw, exactly where the secondary nerve cluster lay hidden beneath the muscle. The impact was like nothing she had ever felt. The shock traveled up her arm and through her entire body. For a terrible moment, she thought her hand had shattered against his thick hide. Then she saw his eyes. They went wide with shock. His mouth opened but no sound came out. His arms, which had been reaching for her, suddenly dropped to his sides. His legs buckled. 300 kilograms of warrior crashed to the arena floor. The silence was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The entire station had just witnessed the impossible. Then from the human section, his voice rang out clear and loud. "That is our corporal." The human squad erupted in cheers. They jumped and shouted and hugged each other, was crying, was laughing. Even the normally quiet was screaming at the top of his lungs. Stood over his fallen body. Her hand was throbbing with pain, but she barely felt it. She looked up at the thousands of aliens staring down at her in stunned silence. "Humans," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "do not need claws." The medical team rushed into the ring to attend to. He was still conscious, his eyes moving, but his body would not respond. The nerve strike had done exactly what it predicted. As they carried him away, caught his eye. She gave him a small nod of respect. He was a warrior, after all. He had simply underestimated his opponent. He would not make that mistake again. Nobody would. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. A human had defeated a combat instructor in single combat, not with weapons, not with tricks, with one punch. Every news channel on every station was talking about it. Recordings of the fight were watched billions of times. Analysts broke down every second of the match, trying to understand how such a small creature had brought down such a powerful warrior. They were furious. Some called it a trick. Others said must have been sick or weak. A few demanded a rematch, a chance to restore their species' honor, but most of them just watched the recording again and again, trying to understand what they had seen. Woke up in the medical bay 3 hours after the fight. The doctors told him he would make a full recovery. The nerve strike had caused temporary paralysis, nothing permanent. His body would be fine within a few days. His pride would take much longer to heal. The next morning was called before the Coalition Combat Training Board. This was a group of senior military officers from every major species in the Coalition. They made decisions about training methods, combat standards, and the integration of new species into galactic military forces. Stood alone in the center of a large circular room. The board members sat in elevated seats around her, looking down like judges at a trial. There were admirals with medals covering their chests, generals with scars from ancient wars, representatives from a dozen other species, all of them powerful, and all of them very interested in the human who had just changed everything. Admiral, an elderly with white fur and wise eyes, spoke first. "Corporal Park, you have done something that many believed was impossible. Please explain to this board exactly what you did and how you did it." Took a breath. She had prepared for this moment. She had known that winning the fight was only the first step. "Humans do not have natural weapons," she began. "We have no claws, no fangs, no armor. When we first evolved on Earth, we were one of the weakest predators on our planet. Everything was faster than us, stronger than us, better equipped to kill than us." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But we survived. We did not just survive. We became the dominant species on our world. We did this by using our greatest weapon, our minds." She held up her hands. "These hands cannot cut through metal like claws, but humans spent thousands of years learning how to use them. We developed martial arts, fighting systems that allow us to generate enormous force through technique. The strike I used against Instructor concentrated the power of my entire body into a single point. Legs, hips, core, shoulder, arm, fist, all of that energy delivered to one spot." "The nerve cluster," Admiral said. "You knew about it." "Yes, Admiral. Humans study our opponents. It is how we survived on our. Every predator that threatened us, we learned its weaknesses. We found ways to defeat creatures 10 times our size. This is what we do. This is what we have always done." The board members exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand something important. Humans were not weak. They were simply different. Their strength did not come from their bodies. It came from their ability to learn, to adapt, to find solutions that other species could not imagine. An admiral leaned forward. "You speak of human martial arts. Are all humans trained in these techniques?" "No, Admiral, I am a specialist. I trained for many years, but the potential exists in every human. Our bodies are designed for efficiency and endurance. With proper training, any human can become a formidable warrior. Even against larger species. Especially against larger species. Size can be a disadvantage when facing an opponent who knows how to use it against you." The board deliberated for several hours. When they finally reached their decision, it changed the future of human-alien relations forever. Humanity would remain in the Coalition military program. More than that, human combat techniques would be studied and potentially integrated into Coalition training, would be promoted and asked to develop a new course teaching human martial arts to interested species. When she returned to the human barracks that evening, her were waiting. They cheered when she walked through the door, surrounding her with hugs and congratulations. "You did it," said, her eyes bright with emotion. "You really did it." "We did it," corrected her, "found the weakness and helped me prepare. This was a team victory." The celebration continued late into the night. For the first time since arriving at the station, the human squad felt like they truly belonged. 3 days later was walking to the training hall when she saw a familiar figure waiting by the door. Stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his neck still wrapped in medical bandages. He looked different somehow. Smaller, more uncertain. Stopped a few meters away. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I underestimated your species," finally said. His voice was quiet without any of his usual arrogance. "I believed that strength was the only measure of a warrior. I was wrong." "Many have made the same mistake," replied. "Most did not get the chance to learn from it." Nodded slowly. Then, to her surprise, he extended his hand toward her. His palm was up and his claws were retracted. She recognized the gesture from her studies. It was a sign of respect between warriors. "I would like to learn," he said. "Your techniques, your philosophy, if you are willing to teach." Looked at his hand for a moment. This was the same instructor who had mocked her, humiliated her, tried to break her. 3 weeks ago she might have refused. But that was not the human way. Humans did not hold grudges against defeated enemies. They turned them into allies. She clasped his hand firmly. "That is why we are here, Instructor. Humanity did not come to the Coalition to replace anyone. We came to learn and to teach, to make all of us stronger together." His expression softened. Something that might have been the beginning of respect flickered in his yellow eyes. "Then let us begin," he said. They walked into the training hall together. Inside, the new class of recruits was already gathering, stood next to, chatted with, and in the center of them all, a group of humans were laughing and talking with alien classmates who had started to see them differently. Looked at the diverse gathering and felt something warm spread through her chest. This was what humanity had dreamed of when they first reached for the stars. Not conquest, not domination, connection. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Strength was not measured in size or natural weapons. It was measured in will, in heart, in the refusal to give up no matter the odds. Humanity had proven itself worthy of standing among the stars. And this was only the beginning.